Have you ever heard of the Dutch miracle? It's a tale of engineering prowess and innovative spirit transforming a nation's fate. As one of the lowest-lying countries in the world, the Netherlands has long grappled with the threat of flooding and inundation. Yet, through centuries of ingenuity and determination, the Dutch have defied the odds and reclaimed their land from the encroaching waters. The history of the Netherlands and their battle against the water. The Netherlands has a long history of managing water resources, and as the world's oceans rise, the Dutch are once again at the forefront of efforts to combat flooding and rising sea levels. 6 million of the 10 million Dutch people live below sea level or sporadically above it. Only massive dikes and shifting sand dunes keep them safe from the wrath of the waves and the whirling tides in the wide estuaries. Consequently, water is a constant concern for the Dutch. It's a topic that occupies their thoughts as a nation. The battle against the water started when the first people arrived in the Netherlands. These people made their homes atop tall sand dunes. Their means of meeting their fundamental requirements were small farming, fishing, and hunting. They constructed terps or mounds as a means of escape during high tide. With the coming of the Romans, the first dikes and other defensive fortifications were constructed. The earliest dams were constructed in the Rhine Valley, close to Cleves, and the first canals, known as Dovewiet and located close to Voorburg, were dug to link the Old Rhine and the Schie River. The Dutch began implementing flood control measures in the early 10th century. Initially, early dikes were constructed using only spades and baskets as simple low embankments along the coastlines. The original dikes successfully withstood every significant surge of water. The construction of barriers by monasteries led to an overabundance of inland water due to their primary focus on local land management. Monasteries, aiming to protect their own territories and agricultural lands, built numerous barriers such as dams and dikes. However, while these barriers effectively prevented flooding and protected their immediate surroundings, they also inadvertently trapped water within inland areas. As a result, the accumulation of water behind these barriers led to an excess of inland water that needed to be drained to prevent stagnation and ensure proper land use. Sluices were originally designed to serve as outlets during low tide. With the invention of windmills some 600 years ago, keeping even deeper polders dry became possible. Primitive dikes offered scant sea protection during the early Middle Ages. A century did not go by without any flooding. The Western Netherlands saw 111 catastrophic and less severe floods between 1000 and 1953. With the introduction of more sophisticated materials, methods, and equipment in the 19th century, such as steam engines and concrete stone slopes, dikes improved and became stronger. However, floods still happened in the Netherlands during the 20th century. In 1906, 1916, and 1953, the largest in living memory. In January 1953, the Netherlands was hit by a massive storm. Severe gales and spring tides caused the sea level to rise to historically high levels. The area flooded as people slept in their beds, apparently safely, due to a breach in the dikes. Warnings never arrived since weather stations were shuttered and no emergency radio broadcast existed. More than 1,800 people lost their lives and 70,000 more were displaced in what was the deadliest flood in the history of the Netherlands. The disaster served as a stark reminder of the warning words penned by master dike builder Andries Vierling some 400 years ago. The 1953 North Sea flood, often called the Watersnoodramp locally, strengthened the Dutch people's desire to ensure that such a disaster never occurred again. Throughout history, the nation has experienced numerous floods, but none had quite the same effect as the one that occurred in 1953. The construction of the Delta Works, a system of dams, dikes, sluices, and storm barriers, was made possible by it. It is recognized as one of the 7 wonders of the modern world, and when combined, its 13 components make up the greatest flood protection system on Earth. Flood protection past versus present. The worst natural disaster since the 1953 floods occurred during the November 1421 floods, when the sea destroyed 72 villages and their 50,000 residents in a single night. However, at that time, the Dutch could only use spades for their defense against the water. Today, they excel in hydraulic engineering. So how could such a water-wise person be caught off guard while they slept? How did this catastrophe occur? What actions will the Dutch take to prevent a terrible recurrence at this point? The Dutch learned from their experience and decided to build a system to save them from horrendous floods. The Oosterschelde-carrying storm surge barrier in the Netherlands is a fantastic engineering achievement. The massive concrete complex took 17 years to build. Climbing the massive structure and taking in the vast amounts of water gushing beneath your feet is an incredible experience. Another moving site to visit is Zierikzee, where a bronze memorial of a mother shielding her infant pays tribute to those who perished in the 1953 floods. The ideal location to learn about the impact of water on the Netherlands is the Watersnoe Museum in Ouwerkerk, Zeeland, about 60 kilometers south of Rotterdam. The Afsluit deck is a crucial component of the Dutch water management system and the enormous Delta Works constructions. A massive 32-kilometer wall that has shielded the Netherlands from the sea since 1932, the dike represents the Dutch people's affinity for water on a national level. A monument honoring this engineering marvel has the inscription, which translates to a people that live, build their own future. It pays appropriate homage to the Dutch people's tenacity in managing the water they live with. Since creating the most sophisticated flood barriers in the world requires experience, the Waterloopkundig Laboratorium in Flevoland was founded as a hydrological laboratory following World War II. Dutch engineers were able to gain insight into how they could proceed with projects similar to the Delta Works by using this area to test wave motion in concrete basins, guide water into and out of large-scale trial models without the need for pumps, and build scale models of locks and harbors. The Dutch strategically attacked where resistance was weakest, engaging in combat with the fifth column entrenched within their dike fortifications. In this context, the fifth column refers to covert enemy agents or sympathizers hidden within the defensive structures of the dike fortifications. These individuals posed a significant threat to the Dutch forces as they could sabotage defenses from within or provide valuable intelligence to the enemy. Thus, the Dutch faced external military challenges and the intricate task of rooting out and neutralizing internal threats to their defense. They emptied the biggest sweetwater lakes with the aid of the recently created windmill. These posed a threat since, during violent storms, they would shower the nearby homes and relentlessly eat away at the small areas of dry land that separated lakes. Thus, the magnificent Haarlem Lake acquired the moniker Water Wolf. Today, Amsterdam's Schiphol airfield is located exactly in the center of this former lake. A pancake flat land with the world's heaviest wheat field spreads around. As lake after lake was thus diverted into fertile clay, some humorous and esteeming Frenchmen created the classic saying, "God made the earth, but the Dutch made Holland." In Holland, a love for peaceful conquest has arisen over the centuries, to transform water into land, to gradually turn what is blue on the map into green, to cultivate grain where fish once swam, to ride horses where waves once rolled. However, it took the Dutch, with their spirit of independence, several centuries to transform their fragmented defense into a unified offensive. The danger is still there. It was high time for action. Arguably, Dutch experts had already concluded that the entire Netherlands had sunk 1 foot in proportion to the North Sea's average sea level over the last century. Although a man might battle the water, he could not defeat its ally, an unrelenting geological force drawing Holland downhill. The reasons were numerous and just as fascinating. First of all, the North Sea has been gradually sinking over the last 200 million years as a whole, while the water level in the North Sea has been gradually rising over the last 20,000 years due to the gradual melting of the massive ice cap that formerly covered all of northern Europe. Furthermore, the Alps and Scandinavia glaciers have melted far more quickly during the past 100 years, raising the North Sea's water level. The third phenomenon is really unsettling. The entire peninsula has been tilting upward at a rate that, in certain spots, approaches 0.4 inches per year since Scandinavia broke free of its thick ice cap. Denmark, just above the fulcrum, is stable, but the surface of Holland, at the opposite end of a massive unseen seesaw, is tilting downhill at a comparable rate. Looking forward to a safer future. The Dutch have made advancements in their freshwater irrigation systems. This has reduced their vulnerability to flooding. Additionally, they have developed a system of lakes that provides increased recreational space near urban centers. This approach has been both functional and well received by the public. They have also drained low-lying areas and shortened their shoreline. Aside from methods that address floods, other contemporary Dutch concepts around coexisting with water are more experimental. For instance, a private group is constructing a floating dairy farm with 40 cows and 6,000 chicks in Rotterdam Harbor. A floating forest of buoy-supported, salt-resistant trees in the harbor has already been established. The Zand motor or sand engine is an experimental concept from the Netherlands that is beginning to gain traction abroad. This 1 kilometer-long, hook-shaped peninsula of sand was constructed in 2011 along a section of South Holland's coastline in Terheide. Dutch engineers are also building dunes around the coastal areas to prevent flooding. Large equipment is used to collect sand from the ocean floor to create dunes. It is stacked to hold the sand in place, and seagrass seedlings are planted on top. The dunes stop flooding when the sea level rises. Make sure to let us know your thoughts, and don't forget to like today's video. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.